Best short stories. Nothing can stop love. She still waits, they joked, men sitting around a bar who, perhaps, never had to wait for anything, who saw women as handkerchiefs they carried in their back pockets, their initials stenciled into the fine lace. When Lola made her appearances outside of the house, they did not wait until she passed by to erupt. She was the observed of their keen eyes, her waiting more legendary than their love affairs. She didn't fall from the sky, but Tia Lola was the woman on the ground. Her wailing outside my window pulled me out of sleep, eclipsing the clanging of the cowbells, a sound I had become used to over the past 14 years. Glancing down at Tia Lola, my first thought was that something must have happened with Tio Carlos. Perhaps he was dead, or worse. The letter the whole town had been waiting for, the one stating he would never return, had finally arrived, and my bare feet slapped against the kitchen floor, and I had to hold on to the doorknob as I slipped rushing outside. I didn't feel the concrete of our porch or the cold grass on the soles of my feet, or the morning dew seeping into my nightgown when I fell to my knees. She clutched nothing new in her hands. No letter, no photo, no fresh accoutrement of hope or rejection, only the old yellowed letters. And the way her body undulated, I knew it was all the memories. I had always wondered how long the heart could stop and start before breaking. Tia, what is it? I asked, not even glancing at me. Tia Lola mumbled about how she met Tio Carlos at her quinceañera and repeated things I already knew. Did you ever think he would come back? She asked. She said all this as if she were talking to another Lola, one above her. I stroked her hair to assure her of my presence and held back my tears so hers could flow. My back stiffened when I heard the door open and realized how I must look without a robe onto any passerby in the street. My long nightgown immediately felt too short, too sheer. Noelia, go inside and get dressed. I'll take care of Lola, my mother said thankfully. That was all she said. The closer to my quinceañera, the more my mother loomed over me, huge wings spreading in a small nest. My mother feared that Tia Lola's misfortune would somehow rub off on me, and my mother wouldn't imagine another woman without a husband in this house. I quickly whispered in my aunt's ear, don't worry, Tia, he'll come back. He said he would come back. It was a common practice, nothing for her to worry about. They drove all the way to San Juan because that was the only airport then. Lola cried, laughed, held his hand, kissed it, and said, Tis pero. Para siempre. She touched her stomach and corrected herself, we'll wait. It was a year after Lola and Carlos had married. He left to make a better life for them in the United States, and before he boarded the plane with a flurry of kisses, waves, and promises he said, Lolita, I'll make you proud. By the time I come back, your father won't have anything to say about me, about us. For 7 years, the letters came, and every time one arrived, Lola held it up as a beacon of his love. She ignored the tales of Carlos's life over there from those who returned without finding their fortune. When she sat on the veranda and saw the dapper young men court her neighbor Sally, when she saw the Plymouth Road King he once dreamed of fowling, or when she saw the high-class ladies with their pearls, she thought only of Carlos. She told herself it was okay that he couldn't make it for their son Julio's birth and death, that she must live with her sister, that the neighbors wove tales behind her back, and that he promised and promised but never kept because in the world Lola configured, her waiting ceased. 555 days stacked. Finding movement everywhere. Lola could see him, re-envision him from a smell, a touch. Carlos, so memorable in his absence. On the surface, the memories acted themselves out in Tia Lola's room, always whiffs of perfumes, scents of last meals, laughter over love letters. The room, pregnant, was always ready to burst. The letters, normally bound, in order by date, by year, were scattered on the floor. They inhabited a white box overlaid with gold, its lid always slightly askew. Lovingly wrapped around the cluster of letters, a ribbon for each year. The red ribbon was for year 2. Pink ribbon for year 5. Year 3, blue. In Tia Lola's room, sheer curtains were tied back so you could access the smolder of the moon or the sun. There was always something from the outside that could be captured in this room, something always welcomed. She had a decorative mosquito net, interlocking swans embraced, she had sewn herself. Perfumes that looked like they were contained in handmade bottles lined her dresser. The room, as I will always remember it, was candlelit for moments ready to be captured and memorialized. But the centerpiece was always that box, with accumulated letters spilling out. Tia Lola sat in her window seat. Already she seemed different from that morning. She looked like she had cried out each hurt, each tear. Her hair was neatly down, and she had a dress she had often been photographed in, a white halter dress tied at her waist. I tiptoed to Tia Lola's bed, near the strewn letters. "I was worried about you all day," I whispered. "How do you feel? Did you hear something?" She shook her head. "There was nothing new to hear," she mumbled. She wrapped her arms around her legs and put her head on her knees. "Just yesterday, I was so excited because we were able to bring my quinceañera dress home, and it was exactly how I had imagined it for the past 3 years. When everyone went to sleep last night, I sat with it, touching the glimmering rhinestones on the full-bodied tulle skirt. Slipping it on, I practiced the dance I would do in a few weeks. The material Mokinon musical swish-swish sound while I counted my steps and held my arms out to an imaginary man. Tia Lola's dress was pulled up, I could see her legs. She used to tell me how beautiful they were, her asset, besides her pretty face. But tonight they looked thin. I saw the wear on them, like they had walked for too long. She absent-mindedly rubbed them while we talked. Dona Santa's husband came back, I chirped. She gave me a faint smile. And what was he like after all those years? In the novella El Q Duran, which we had watched every afternoon for the past few months, Santa Davila was like Tia Lola. She waited and waited. And just today, José Davila had returned, smile broader than their distance. He was even more handsome than when he left, and he loved her even more. I picked up the most worn letter near my foot. The letters from the early years, those were my favorite. I imagined that Tia Lola lay on those letters to surround herself with his love. Even today, I filled the heavy air with his words. "Carino, the world moves so fast here. The factory job Ignacio helped me get has been long and tiring. But I save money from each paycheck. As exhausting as it is, I wish I could get 2 jobs so that I could come home to you faster. I won't let you down. What you've heard isn't true. I don't have time to do much besides have 1 drink a week. I work and sleep. We'll have the great life we should have. I'm sorry this is what our 2nd year of marriage looks like. I would rather be home kissing your face. I have to cut this letter short. I'm exhausted from all this work. Tomorrow I said I would fix the furnace for the landlord. He said he would give me a discount on the rent. Let's count the months and maybe this time next year this will all seem like a long ago memory. He never loves you less," I said, placing the letter back with the others. The first time Lola fully immersed herself in her suffering was right after Julio came into the world stillborn. Carlos said that he would be there 4 months and weeks. And when her water broke, Lola tried to hold it in, to give him more time to arrive. Right before she went into labor, it flickered through her mind that he would not come. The day after she was released from the hospital, Lola marched over to Carlos's parents' house to confront them and has not suffered in silence since. Passers-by heard her shrieks, and that was the first day the townsmen began their snickering. And it was the last day the women she had come to love, the ones also waiting for husbands, grieved with her. They promulgated and led the worst jeers about Lola. Since then they have not stopped, but that does not matter to Lola, it has never mattered. The only thing that mattered was Carlos's return. To avoid explaining Tia Lola's behavior, my mother declined to go to church but ordered me and my father to go regardless because after the services, we would rehearse the quinceañera mass with the priest. At least at the church, there would be a sense of tranquility. No threats. I had woken up for 11 days to the noise of Tia Lola, and then that of my mother and my father, and I rarely spent time alone together. But for the months leading up to my quinceañera reception, we continually rehearsed our waltz. Because of that I have come to see the man my mother must see, perpetually elegant, his hair normally parted and coiffed to the side, All his suits bought in the capital from the same stores the Americans shopped, wealth shimmering off of him, that I would invariably take a step in the wrong direction. Don't worry, Noelia, you'll dance beautifully soon enough. A man with a calming presence. Without him, my mother would have come undone over Tia Lola's spectacle. For the first time, I felt like his daughter. His. In our house, he stood behind my mother and my mother only. Not because he was a weak man, but because she was his wife, first and foremost. My mother had always had my father, and I had always had Tia Lola. Dona Olga, Ricardo's mother, was the first person we encountered when me father and I arrived at the Mass. Ricardo was my partner in my quinceañera and, hopefully, soon in life. My father quickly acknowledged her presence. Behind my father, I peeked at Dona Olga's face to determine if she had heard about Tia Lola's wailing. She asked about my mother and then simply smiled at me, and I knew I had been dismissed. Dona Olga had never been kind to me, nor outright cruel. My mother suspected that she found me unsuitable for Ricardo because of Tia Lola, but tolerated our pairing because we are an established family. I had even overheard my mother talking about Don Andres, Ricardo's father, being in financial trouble because of drinking and gambling. Sometimes my mother thought we had the upper hand, sometimes she thought Ricardo's family did. As soon as the Mass was over, I rushed to the demos. All of us girls sat clumped together and talked among ourselves. What we were really doing, though, was conversing so that every now and then we could consider the boys who sat in the pews across from us. Even if they had never met before you started preparing for this quinceañera, each girl had taken to fantasizing about her partner. Alisa pined for Jose, Rita gazed at Luis, Yvette pouted at Pedro. All 15 of us girls took turns dreaming Ricardo. Each time, I was struck by his beauty, dark wavy hair and dimples. Broad-shouldered and a self-satisfied smile. Other girls said he reminded them so much of the new American movie star Marlon Brando. He had even caught older women flirting with or gawking at my Ricardo. All our lives we had lived across from each other, and all my life I had known that one day we would be here. If any of these girls in my quinceañera called change escorts, they would choose him because he was the handsomest. I slowly smiled at him, lowered my eyes, and glanced away. Lola, he mouthed when I looked at him again. The silent volatility of the word. The way he stretched out the name matched the snarl in his eyes, that face, beautiful one moment and the next, rigid eyes, blazing nostrils, coiled lip. I'd seen that visage before, when he'd grabbed my arm at school, turning my skin red under his fingers. I flipped my hands up in front of my chest, palms facing the sky. I shook my head. Even my mother can't restrain Lola. I closed my eyes tightly and imagined my quinceañera, Ricardo holding me in his arms, our bodies touching. He was the one dancing my confirmation dance with me instead of my father. Regardless of the ceremony, it was he, not my father, who would make me a woman. And after the quinceañera, that was the day I would most look forward to. The priest called us, and we began the rehearsal. I watched the damas go down the aisle with their partners, anxiously awaiting my turn. When my mother, small and stern, came downstairs, her perpetually stony face was red and her hands shook. Tia Lola had scratched her a brutal swollen slash across my mother's right cheek. Droplets of blood dried on her face. I stepped back, melted into the wall. Tia Lola had never harmed anyone, only herself. I hovered next to our living room. It was cordoned off for adults and everything always remained the same there. The tiny doll statuettes my mother collected lined an oversized bookcase. She dusted them herself to ensure they remained pristine. The domino sets my father loved were displayed on the coffee table. And every day, regardless of what was happening in our house, my father sipped his coffee in a cherrywood rocking chair his grandfather made before starting his furniture business 52 years ago. I would peek in on the two of them when they were in his room. It's like they became different people in there. "Que paso?" my father asked in an even tone that still conveyed his concern, and my mother's silent anger was screaming, but I could no longer hear Tia Lola's cries. For once, I was thankful. In the same way Tia Lola had spent 7 years dreaming about Tio Carlos's return, I had spent those same years waiting for the day I became a woman. I can't deal with her anymore. She makes a spectacle of herself, and I'm trying to help her, my mother said. I thought I heard a cluster of tears in her throat. Damn, my father held her. Why, he said as he stroked her hair. I'm always amazed to see her softness under his touch, all that magic contained in his hands. My father would die all over again to see this, a world where men leave women and never come back. Nobody says anything about Carlos. If not for him, none of this would have happened. Then everyone just stands around and laughs at her. But where is the reproach for him? He's the one who left her and she suffers for it all. She would never have done this before Carlos. Good thing you have me, he said, kissing her on the shoulder. Don't worry. It's nothing. She's done this before. They are different people together. Ones I don't know or have access to, layers you would never see otherwise, yes, but not this bad and not for so long. And I'm the one who has toneswere for her. I'm the one who has to endure the whispers about her, she said, and squelched any traces of fury in her voice. She turned to me, impatience growing on her face. Stop talking to her. Stay away from Lola until after the quinceañera. No communication. None. I stood small in front of her. Yes, Mummy. As always, her wishes Wald respected, unabashed. I blasted simmering looks at Ricardo and Estefania. I raised the peanut butter sandwich the Americans brought to our school menu to Mymouth, but that's where it stayed. The smell choked me. The sun, it boiled our wooden table. It's all I could hear, the clinking of their laughter. Rita kept her hand on my arm and said silly, mean things about Estefania. Called her Estefania. Said she's like the Americanas we see in movies, the Isa Marilyns. Girls who unfastened their legs for boys without a thought to futures, to reputations, to family names. Ricardo doesn't break eye contact with me as he flips Estefania's hair as he leans to whisper some amusement into her ear. This is a game we've played. The unwritten rules of the courtship entailed breaking the rules of propriety and meeting in secret for a few minutes after school before Irished home. And Ricardo, he would push me up against the school walls. I only let him kiss me, though. He would whisper that I was loca like my aunt. And when he talked to other girls, I cornered him in the same hallways where he whispered his desire for me. I would beat on his chest and fold into a handkerchief of grief. When Lola met Carlos at her quinceañera, it was because she had disobeyed the rules, not followed them. Her partner, a boy her father had chosen, a boy from a good family, one who would never have to leave the island and go work in the United States, that was who her father chose. Carlos was merely an attendee, not even one of the caballeros. What her parents wished for at her quinceañera was not what Lola wanted. She didn't know who or what she longed for until she met Carlos, and even though he was poor, there was something about him that could be redone, refashioned. He could easily be made into the man Lola wanted. And it was that moment that barricaded her future. A constant picture of that stolen dance of theirs when she touched his face playfully in front of everyone. That was the way she saw her love, in snippets, highlights of the best moments. How they eclipsed the rules and the townspeople. Even though a lot could have happened in 7 years, she remained turning back to those moments. Because who could have supposed the happiness, the freedom, felt on that day could lead to this? I came home and found them in the living room. Dona Olga turned to look at me, and the highlights of my life washed away from the shore. She was as formidable as my mother, 2 bulls in one ring. My mother's pale skin was matched by Dona Olga's dark skin. My mother's thinness to Dona Olga's thickness. Each was equal. All the times I had watched Tia Lola cry, I had never seen how it permeated the community, how others were affected by it. I had seen the laughter, but that was just an amusement for the townspeople. Nobody had really cared now. Dona Olga was here because she cared very much that I wanted to cry, but I knew I mustn't in front of Dona Olga. But as I walked into the room to give her my regards, my mother broke out into a little smile, and Dona Olga even gave a short laugh. I looked at my mother and was grateful that she had steadied Dona Olga. As soon as she saw Dona Olga had safely made it back to her home, Mimotha ran upstairs. She instantly became fierce, yelling and screaming at Tia Lola. My mother projected the future. Tia Lola negated it. Dona Olga just left. She said that if you don't stop, the courtship between Noelia and Ricardo will end. And if he decides after the quinceañera that he doesn't want to marry her, then who will want to come near her with an insane aunt in the same house? Everyone will think this craziness runs in the family. No, 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 Tia Lola repeated, and I imagined her dissolving into her bedroom floor. Tia, I know you feel terrible, but not only has Dona Olga come over but also Ricardo has been aloof with me. This should be one of the happiest times in my life, and it's marred. Please, Tia, I urge you to think about the joy you felt during your quinceañera. Surely it was one of the most spectacular times in your life. And listening all those years to those stories about Tio Carlos, well, I couldn't wait until it was my turn. But my time has come and there has been so much angst around your grief. I say this respectfully, Tia. Just as you enjoyed your quinceañera, I wish to have the same happy memories you did. I have always listened to you and championed your love. I wish you to do the same. This is not how I want to remember me quinceañera. Noelia. All week I had watched my mother fight with Tia Lola, forbid her to go outside and wail, and each morning, she was out there nonetheless. Tia Lola was the only person my mother could not control. I quietly slid the letter under her door. Even though Tia Lola was 9 years older than me, I had always been closer to her. She had wiped my tears when my mother was the cause of them. She plaited my hair and fashioned it the same as she always had, 2 French braids down her back. When he comes back, you can even have your own room in our house, she would say to me before kissing me on the cheek. For a moment, I envisioned myself just walking into her room, lying on her bed, and admitting my weaknesses to her. And that image gratified me for a moment, especially in thinking I could relieve her suffering, if only briefly, that was something I had the power to alleviate. I stepped toward her door, putting my hand on it, wondering, hoping she could hear me breathing outside, but then I heard a muffled sound like one of her sobs in the morning. The tightness in my chest inflamed once again. I imitated my mother's stern face and stance before stomping away. Knowing she couldn't see me, I fiercely stared at her. But she lay on her back in the grass, eyes in the direction of the sky, wailing, wailing, Tia. I snapped. Loca, I heard almost at the same time. One of the townsmen, Paolo, was snickering at our gate. He said it again, louder. Inlq Duran, Santa Davila's love was strong because it could cross borders, it could hold on. There, the community members respected her, they kept vigil with her. Not like here, where they make fun. The front door shrieked open, and Paolo quickly moved on as my father stepped outside. Dressed for work, my father stood there for a few minutes with a cup of coffee in his hands. He too looked at the sky, but it was clear that he and Tia Lola weren't seeing the same thing. He was enjoying the sunshine, the morning, as if he couldn't see her. When he went back inside, my mother came out and stood over her sister. Get up, she said to her as if she were talking to me. Tia Lola paid her no heed and kept on. She did not notice my mother, the townsman at the gate, me, or my father, but I saw her. Her sullied nightgown, the wet grass, the stillness of her body, except for hands clutching and clawing at her throat. In spite of all this, the sun sheathed her with its brightness. She was growing plumper and glowed. Stripped for so many years, Tia Lola's gathering of memories was feeding her. When I got home from school later in the day, I found a note from Tia Lola. She wrote that she wanted me to come to her room as soon as possible, that it was urgent she speak to me. I took the note and splayed it open in front of my mother. Make her stop, please. I was shaking. Why can't we send her to Cousin Anna's house? When Tia Lola married Tio Carlos, her father was outraged, sputtered Arthur, pulled her by her hair, beat her even. This was all deeply cruel for Tia Lola, but at the end of it she had Carlos and that remedied much. But she blamed her father for Tio Carlos leaving. Her father refused to support her, and when he died a year later, she found he had followed through on his promise to cut her out of his will. And he left all of his money to my mother. Now Tia Lola was a woman without her own house, without a husband, and without a fortune. My mother was older, and while she took care of Tia Lola, there was no familial ease between them. Tia Lola sat at our table every day knowing that all she had in the world was because my mother thought the rumors would be far worse if she were uncontained, loose in the streets. They once were close, so Tia Lola told me, but when her father turned his back on her, so did my mother. And there I stood, with the people who had been the most vicious toward Tia Lola, the clanging of the cowbells. I jumped out of bed to look out my window, and Tia Lola was not there. Jubilant, I rushed out of my room, and for the first time in weeks, there was no anger or distress lingering in the air. My mother, sitting at the kitchen table, relaxed and smiling, said, "One more week." Stepping onto the grass, I squinted up at the sky trying to see what Tia Lola had seen. I watched the cows lumbering in the distance before I sat down. I could smell the mango and coconut trees, the morning air. I lay on the warm ground where Lola should have been and involuntarily moaned as I felt the sun on my face, the blades of grass under me. The heat of the sun, the morning rising to possibilities, the noise and the silence. This moment, this space, was a place to dream all this life around me. I wondered if her wailing tuned it out. Or if Tia Lola saw it and that's why she came out here, to be born again. Her need for him made me wait for him too. I also lit candles wanting Tio Carlos to come back. I knew all their anniversaries, when he first kissed her, when he bought her the string of pearls that still chokes her neck, the number of days from the last day that he wrote. I gazed at his picture almost as much as Tia Lola did. She always described him as the most beautiful man in Puerto Rico, said he was a descendant of Arecibo, the Taino Cacique town was named after. She said she could imagine him on the beach before they came and we became a different people. He was fair-skinned though, with dark curls, not at all the man Tia Lola imagines him to be. I did see him on the beach, a descendant of Arecibo, but as the one who was coming to claim this land as his own nonetheless, he was a man to me. I believed in him as she did, and I fulfilled his promises to her. I envisioned for her what their life could have been, should have been if he were still here or came back. I constructed the house they would live in, one like ours, spacious, white, and clean. I could hear their laughter as Tio Carlos chased Tia Lola around the house, and these were the moments when her heart could just stop because she loved him so much, and she was so delighted he was here and hers. These were the moments when she would shut her house to visitors in the daytime, would close all the doors, lock them, even pull down the window shutters, and lie next to him in bed, hold his hand under the pale ivory silk sheet, and she would wish for a hurricane to come right at that moment and blow them away or submerge them in the tropical waters of Puerto Rico, because then the last thing she would ever know was this bliss, this everlasting happiness with Tio Carlos. She shook me awake and I suppressed a yelp. Her brown hair was no longer pinned but fell messily along her shoulders, and she wore a thin white nightgown. I thought she was coming back tomorrow. The last week of silence had been so luxurious that I thought I would cry only hearing the cowbells every morning. In the semi-darkness of the night, only half of Tia Lola's body was visible, so she looked like a mere girl. Then I remembered how she scratched my mother's face. I pulled my sheet up to my hammering heart. "Please don't be mad. Mummy forbade Meto come and see you before the quinceañera. She didn't want to upset you more than you already were." She continued to stare at me with her intense brown eyes and paused before responding. And in those few seconds, I thought about everything she had ever done for me. How she had always been there to comfort me and how she, more so than anyone else, had made me feel loved all my life. She reached for my hand and said softly, "You're young, Noelia. I know you must do what your mother tells you." She got up and stood by my mirror, in front of my dress. "Tell me what you think is to come. What do you hope for?" she asked in a small, sweet voice. The voice she had when Carlos first left. She held my white quince dress in front of her. We both looked at her preening in the mirror and laughed. This Tia Lola was neither in pain, nor in anguish for love. I shushed us. These were the kind of noises I would later learn my mother envied about us. The sounds of delight that would be muffled in any other room. It's the other sound I would associate with Tia Lola, laughter that tingles and sprouts vast smiles, overtaking a room. It says there is wonder, and so much ahead, so much to come. She pressed her body against my dress and had me hold up her hair. We should be engaged by next year, I said, instantly lighting up. I felt like all the times I had been in her room and she told me about Tio Carlos. I had been waiting for this day, to offer her a story of my own. And because I would be a woman hours from now, I could offer something real, not just a schoolgirl's fantasies. I leaned forward, telling her my innermost dreams and secrets. Probably the same ones as she or maybe Tio Carlos had. Ricardo and I kissing while watching novellas. Me always getting up and meeting him at the door. I see his smile. Picture our kids, a boy and a girl, singing around the house. I always imagine myself looking at him with this simple wonder. Lola nodded her head. I saw the sadness, the wail, come back to her eyes. I thought that too, she said softly. I turned away from her and checked the hour. It was time for her to leave. I had spent so many hours dreaming about Ricardo's and my future together. My body tingled at the prospect that I would be new the next day, and I wondered what it would be like to be born a woman. Would I see changes in my face? In my body? Would I be recognizable in the streets? The Demos gathered around me at the church. They asked if I had seen Ricardo. That he looked handsome. They swirled around me in their pink dresses and told me I was beautiful in my white one. When it was time for the ceremony to begin, I glanced around. Tia Lola had not arrived. Upon waking that morning, I wondered if her coming to my room last night had been a dream. The Demos lined up with the caballeros, and they proceeded down the aisle in line. I watched all of them, and it was like each couple was 1 second in a minute, and each of their steps brought me closer to my future. Then it was my turn. My father in his fine black suit linked arms with me on my right side and my mother was on my left. She wore a purple satin dress that brought sunshine to her face. Her bare arm felt warm against mine. In slow, even paces, we walked down the aisle together. I looked straight ahead to make sure the expression on my face remained modest, though I was smiling brightly inside. We stood to the right of the priest and he said, "Congregation, today, it is with great honor that I conduct this quinceañera mass. Noelia Núñez and her family have long been faithful members of this church. It is with the sincerest of pleasures that I preside over this mass to usher Noelia into the rights of womanhood." He then paused, and my parents presented me with the typical quinceañera gifts. They both smiled triumphantly. My father stepped behind me and placed a gold necklace around my neck. The necklace symbolized my faith in God, myself, and the world, and in my head I added that the necklace also symbolized my faith in love, in what it meant to be a woman, and in marriage. My mother set in my hands the red rose I would place in the bouquet beneath the altar of the Virgin Mary. After I added my flower, my mother then presented me with my own new Bible and a pink rosary. The three of us then participated in the Eucharist. This was just the beginning of the many rites of the day. Dancing with my father would be the last thing I did as a girl. Dancing with Ricardo would be the first thing I did as a woman. I made my entrance into the reception hall on Ricardo's arm and was able to count how many people were actually there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who knew me when I was first born and others whom I had not seen since had traveled to be with me on my special day. I beamed at Ricardo. All the difficulties of the past weeks had boiled down to this, and it was how I had always envisioned it. I caught a glimpse of how Tia Lola must have felt, Tobe perpetually frozen in a beautiful moment. And for once, I clearly understood how difficult it could be to let go of such memories. It was a day I could easily lament the loss of and could easily play over and over again in my head. Ricardo led me to the middle of the reception hall, to my special woven chair, with a back that fanned out around and above me. The hall was filled with balloons and flowers, and on the wall across from my chair was a sign that said "Happy Birthday, Noelia." The music stopped, and that was the cue for my father and the commencement of the next rite. My mother came toward me. She carried a white satin pillow with my high heels on top of it, and my father knelt in front of me and raised my skirt, only a proper amount. He took off my flat shoes one at a time, replacing them with the heels. Everybody clapped and he took my hand to dance. My father placed his hand on my waist, and I placed mine on his shoulder. As we started to move, I saw Ricardo standing in the sidelines, waiting to dance with me next. Even though I could not wait for my dance with Ricardo, this moment slowed for me because I knew this was the last thing I would do as a girl in his world. And I took it all in, every second. Every aspect of my body was in tune with this moment. Every part of me smiled as I counted down the time. My father twirled me around the room, and in the last spin of our dance, Tia Lola strode in. I stared at her for interminable seconds. It was a simple ivory silk dress. The very dress she wore on her wedding day. Though tighter today, constricting, her hair was the same. One braid, wrapped into a bun on the left side of her head, everything down to the shine on her shoes was the same. The merriment was silenced, everyone stared. My mother was immobilized. No one laughed like they normally did in Tia Lola's presence. Tia Lola sauntered across the dance floor, and the tapping of her heels roared in my head. She came over and easily pulled my father toward her, taking my confirmation dance away. I faced my father, and my father, not sure if he should play along, moved for a beat or two with her. Then he looked at me in my white dress and finally let his arms drop, and stepped away from Tia Lola. I spun around the room to all the faces that had come to be with me. Everyone caught in that moment. How they just stood there. They all blurred, and it was not my tears. Two faces easily came into focus, Dona Olga and Ricardo. She desperately whispered in his ear, and he effortlessly nodded his head. I wanted to reach for Ricardo, but he was already swimming away from. Lola knew it was different this time, the wailing. It came from some other place. No longer that yearning for Carlos. For the past several weeks, since she had been mourning outside, she had returned to her room afterward, scarcely eaten anything, and barely spoken to anyone, and she unraveled the letters, one by one. And there were many. More than one would expect for a woman who had surely been abandoned. And in each one she had tried to capture that beautiful pain in her heart that had defined her as a woman in love, given her a place in this town's history as a woman who had been left behind. She knew she would go down in stories, and there was nothing more fascinating to her than to be a woman not forgotten. She studied those letters to resurrect her heart. What beautiful words Hugh wrote. She traced his words and remembered the loops of his Ls and the creases of his Es, but the words now lay flat on the page. She couldn't conjure anything. Whatever he said began and ended on those pages. All of her senses were dead. There was no longer anything in those letters that could jumpstart her heart. No more sweet fantasies during her afternoon sun the veranda. Perhaps that was the greatest tragedy of all. The end of the dream seemed much more intolerable than the past 7 years. Her love for Carlos, her yearning, gone. Now she would have no one, or nothing, to love. I unfurled long, cruel, deeply held screams at my mother. You promised everything would be okay if I just stayed away from Lola. You promised. You did nothing. Nothing. You just stood there. I felt like a statue cracking, rattled by an earthquake. My mother, at first taken aback, stood up straight and slapped me across the face. Young ladies do not speak to their mothers like that. I didn't stop. Nothing could have stopped me. That's always your response, I yelled at her. You lied to me. You think this is my fault. Mine. I did everything I could to make sure your quinceañera would be perfect. No, Noelia, I told you all your life how to behave. But it was only this year, the most important year of your life, that you decided to pay attention. This is your fault. You were always after your aunt. Let me tell you, as I have always been the honor to steer you onto the right path, that it was your aunt, your beloved Tia Lola, that you should be having this conversation with. She is the one who has taken your dream and crumpled it. She is the one, not me. I have always been here to support your dreams. Me. Not her. And you have the audacity to stand here and berate me. Sinvergenza. Why did you do it? How could you? I screeched. Tia Lola sat at her vanity and did not turn around. I didn't want you to be a woman. It is a terrible thing to be a woman. One day, you will thank me. I threw one of my high heels at her head. I missed, and the vanity mirror cracked and crumbled, but Lola remained unfazed. She did not flinch or turn to look at me. Trust me, Noelia, trust me. Nights after Lola stole my dance, I went out by the cows, waiting for Ricardo, and when he arrived, he kissed me and undressed quickly. I watched Lola fling what looked like confetti from her open window. The white paper illuminated against the blue-black sky. I pushed his shoulders up, so I could look at him one last time. Then he entered me. And I wondered what her room felt like now, devoid of its past. Had it sunk? Orison again, I felt shipwrecked. I imagined myself as the one landing on the untouched beaches of Puerto Rico. There is Arecibo. He welcomes me, not knowing what I will bring. What promise she had. Incorporated in 1850, she was awarded medals and monikers, the birthplace of volleyball, queen of industrial cities. One year she was the paper city of the world. Of the world, paper was like gold here. The mill's opening in 1849 started everything. 25 paper mills at its zenith. The people boomed from 4,600 to 60,000 inhabitants from 1885 to 1920. The streets teemed with Irish and Polish immigrants and with refined people who were able to make this small western Massachusetts town a city where Broadway shows were previewed. A place that was about to come into its own in the shadow of New York City, but without any of the city tribulations that was then. Today, there are new monikers, new people, highest teenage pregnancy rate in Massachusetts, crime rate above the national average, highest concentration of Puerto Ricans anywhere in the world outside of Puerto Rico, and girls like Veronica. What I notice most about her is her ripe body. The way her tits stick out and everything curves down the back of her skirt. She wears black sandals from wild pear that expose her orange-painted toenails. Gold rings populate 3 off the fingers on her right hand, her punching hand, and 2 on her left. Her lips are maroon-colored, the prerequisite for any Holyoke girl. Her hair is dyed lighter than nature had ever intended, and the texture has evolved. And if I sat behind her and traced the history of her hair, I would get her life history. It has gotten harsher and coarser over time. Believing it is happier at each stage. I observed her first in the book The Boys and Girls of Holyoke. There were girls and boys who said they wanted to be doctors, nurses, lawyers, all the careers you see on TV. Sometimes I think Holyoke people are a cliché. Nobody will burst out dramatically here. And who was this idealistic ethnographer anyway? Writing on a place he knew nothing about. Maybe he was from Vermont or New Hampshire, from a place that was supposed to be quaint like Massachusetts and actually was. He wasn't from around here, though, hadn't spent his life in Holyoke, but I thought it interesting that some outsider would write a whole book about us. That somebody thought us worthy enough to say over and over again, they have hope. He came for a few days to shoot pictures and took those few precious moments caught between his eyes and the camera lens as proof of his hypothesis. But his photos, notes, observations, would be all that he was able to unearth about Holyoke, Massachusetts. Not like me, the ins and outs of these streets, of these people. My ethnography is the truth, and I remember her in that book, her smile, subtle, closed mouth, and her unadornment, showing that life hadn't gotten to her yet. Perhaps she even shared the dreams of those other kids. Perhaps. She still has the same smile today, but now it shows a sexiness. Sexy at 15. Whenever Miss O'Donnell calls on Veronica, all she can think of when she opens her mouth is, tramp, whore, floozy. While Veronica is no more susceptible to becoming pregnant than the other girls in her class, Miss O'Donnell sees how everyone desires Veronica's beauty. And it is not her prettiness that Miss O'Donnell detests, but rather the admiring, the whispering, the rustling, and the shifting done whenever Veronica is in Anyoni's presence. But Miss O'Donnell knows something they don't. While Veronica is hot shit here, she wouldn't even register in someone else's world. Nowhere else would girls compare themselves to Veronica to see how their jeans matched up, their shoes, their lipstick color, their right shade of hair. Only here, especially in Miss O'Donnell's class, but lucky for Miss O'Donnell, she doesn't have to call on Veronica too often. Veronica is one of those girls who doesn't talk much in class. Since kindergarten, Veronica has rarely raised her hand, and this pattern of barely doing anything has followed her into her high school years and will inevitably follow her for the rest of her life. She usually sits there with a hard expression on her face, popping her gum. Any ounce of intelligence she may have had at birth will surely never surface and rescue her from this life. For a bit of amusement, Miss O'Donnell chooses Veronica today. When Veronica is called on in class, butterflies gnaw at her stomach, and it's sometimes worse than being with boys. Veronica wants to ignore Miss O'Donnell, but she is one of those teachers who will call you out. Mad before class even starts. So Veronica speaks inaudibly, but then not being able to discern Miss O'Donnell's facial expression, she speaks louder, rushing forward with her words. What Veronica doesn't know is that Miss O'Donnell is really just mulling over how she will unwind in front of the TV tonight. As soon as she gets home, she will forget about this day, this week, and will undoubtedly calculate how many days to retirement, even though she knows the number is 635. But each day she likes to count again. Sometimes she doesn't include the weekends or holidays when she needs a bit more toehold on to. She will dream about her life after all of this and assure herself that it will not be too late to be happy. She will flip through cruise and vacation brochures. She makes sure to receive new ones each month, and imagine herself in an exotic place. She sees Puerto Rico on the list of destinations, and while she wants to stay far away from anything Puerto Rican, it looks so pretty in brochures. Beautiful beaches, pink and yellow houses, grand hotels, and plenty of white people. And she can't fathom these Holyoke Puerto Ricans with that place. But maybe the Puerto Ricans there are different, more couth. When Miss O'Donnell goes to sleep that night, she will dream of herself with another retired teacher, pink and plump just like her, turning red in the hot Puerto Rican sun. They will laugh at the people who work at their beach resort as they rub suntan lotion on each other and discuss how yes, they are different, so much more polite and unnoticeable than the Puerto Ricans in Holyoke. And there, she will not see anyone like Veronica. Finally, in the streets, Miss O'Donnell will be the one looked at. When Veronica notices the dismissive expression in Miss O'Donnell's green eyes, her words, like always, trail off to the inaudible. But no matter, her classmates are certainly not concerned with Miss O'Donnell and what she considers important. What they want to know is who Veronica is fucking and if it's true that she once gave Ralphie a blow job at the Holyoke Mall. Maria slips Veronica the question book that has been passed around the classroom since Miss O'Donnell took roll 35 minutes ago. Their ISA question on every page and everybody has chosen a number as an alias. Page 3 asks, who will get pregnant next? Veronica Diaz, Tiffany Suarez, or Elizabeth Gomez? Veronica stares down at number 4, number 9, and all the other numbers on the page who have one simple answer to that question, VD. Veronica scans the room and realizes that her classmates are watching to see her reaction. She reviews the question again, all the VDs, and the one Ralphie fucksher all the time. She has to be pregnant. Veronica covers her mouth with her fist. She doesn't know why she's the one they always talk shit about. Then she writes TS, she already has a baby anyway, and passes the book. What differentiates Veronica from most of the other Holyoke girls is that she's an in-between girl. Never is she unaware of the role she has to play, she never leaves home without her hardness, she practices how to fight when she is alone, and constantly scrolls through all the other things she has to do in order to avoid even more fights. But she has this squishy little heart inside that sometimes presses on her so hard that she has to cry. Never in front of her girls because she knows that even though she has been friends with them for many years, that could change at any moment. But she lets it all out in front of Ralphie, because it's okay to cry in front of your boyfriend, because that is what girls are supposed to do, Even Hollyoake girls, so now she presses her nails into her palm to distract herself because breaking down in front of her classmates would mean total dissolution. And no one, not even Cassandra, Veronica's best friend and the most popular girl at school, could help her out. Veronica takes a moment and visualizes a thing she truly hates. Firms her heart up. Glances back at Maria and rolls her eyes, so everyone can see that she doesn't give a fuck. While Veronica is not the most popular girl at Hollyoake High, she is certainly one of the prettiest, and her uncontested friendship with Cassandra ensures that very few girls will step to her. Veronica has gotten into a few fights, but not since she started high school. However, if she were in the ranks of the untouchable girls, like Cassandra, people would never talk about her. The rumors about her wouldn't have that slightly nasty tone, but she is popular enough that they are certainly not all out malicious. I like how everyone thinks I'm gonna get pregnant, Veronica declares. Although still bothered from class, she knows she has to mention it, otherwise she will come off like a punk. She has to make sure to laugh Lou at lunch, talk big, or do something that will get her noticed so no one will think she's been affected in the least. Even if you were, what's the big deal? They could have said a lot nastier shit, Maria replies. There isn't a time when Veronica does not remember being friends with Maria. Going into high school, they haven't been as close, but Veronica realizes that it would be worse to end things with Maria than to just go along with their friendship. There would be too much drama if she stopped talking to her. Maria is average looking, but has a great sense of style and, most importantly, she's tough. People are less apt to fuck with Maria. She has a big mouth, and everyone knows she's willing to get down if necessary. In short, Maria is cool. A person like Maria is what a girl like Veronica needs anyway. Have you seen Ralphie yet? Cassandra interjects. No, I haven't seen him in like a week and he's never on Chestnut Street when I'm looking for him. He's been acting shady lately. I think he's playing me. But I don't know with who because everybody knows I go out with him. Yeah, well, you never know about these chicken heads. Maybe he's been arrested, Cassandra offers. Maybe, but I figured that he would have called or someone else would. VE told me. I don't know, this shit is so whack. Are you gonna break up with him? Maria asks. No, not yet. I wanna find out what the deal is first. The white girl from their class, Gail, the one who lives in the Flats A Puerto Rican section of Hollyoake, even though, if truth be told, most of Hollyoake is Puerto Rican, even if white people have their own neighborhoods and outnumber them, walks by the three girls and says, "Hi." Maria leans in. What about her? I heard she's been talking to Ralphie. Veronica dwells on that high, and she sees Gail stop to talk to Frankie, the only Puerto Rican boy at this school who Veronica, Maria, and Cassandra would even entertain going out with. Veronica sees the way Gail giggles and flips her dirty brown hair. She refuses to really believe this girl could be competition. But Veronica ruptures. Gail, come here. Hey, Gail says, not sure what's going on. I hear you're real tight with my man. Is that true? Others turn to look at them in the cafeteria and Maria laughs. I know him in passing, but that's about it, Gail says, shaking her head and taking a step back. Well, make sure to keep it that way. Veronica stares Gail down until she knows she has given her classmates something new to talk about. Normally, bringing fear into a white girl's eyes is not what makes Veronica feel strong. White people don't know how to fight. In fact, fights with white girls won't even make a reputation. Only fights with other Puerto Rican girls and the few black girls who live here count. But today, she needs this. Veronica turns back to Maria and Cassandra and says, she's lucky Shadow S&T gets smacked. If I catch her talking to him, it's on. The Irish. What rabble-rousers. Being the first wave of immigrants made them puff up with power. They proliferated in the mill industry. And knowing they were the dominant majority, they started demanding more, and more. Setting off the labor unions. But all that was short-lived. The mills then purposely started recruiting French Canadians, considered to be more docile. The Irish couldn't be rooted out though, and vestiges of the Irish still remain. To this day, Everyone in Hollyoak still attends the St. Patrick's Day parade. Can you imagine anything more absurd than a bunch of Puerto Ricans at a St. Patty's Day parade? In South Hollyoak, the flats, up the hill, and on Chestnut Street, the Puerto Rican girls walk in silence, hoping for invisibility if they are alone or in pairs, but more than two and they feel safe, like they can beat anyone down, like they own the streets. Trekking home with Cassandra after school, Veronica's heart beats erratically when she spies a group of Puerto Rican girls occupying the stoop ahead of them. This is when she and Cassandra are wary of their volume. They lower their voices and try not to rouse Yanyon's attention. Cassandra's reputation only extends so far. They're no longer at Hollyoak High, and they don't know these girls. It's always this way with them. Every day, the heart pounding. The only time they can be carelessly loud, throw their shoulders back, and be noticed is around white people. Veronica and Cassandra make it to the girls, and Veronica listens real hard to make sure that nothing is said under their breaths. While Veronica would hate to fight, she knows she must if anything was said to her or about her, especially in front of someone else. Cassandra keeps chatting. Her silence would draw more attention to her, but she also knows enough to not be too loud. She's telling Veronica about a party next week. Veronica pays attention to Cassandra, but she strains her ears to hear the other girls. Then she very softly hears, "Corny bitches." Veronica's heart sprints, and she slows her pace. She is about to turn around and glare at the four girls, but she glances at Cassandra and, to her relief, she hasn't heard anything. She just keeps talking and Veronica knows she's saved this time. She wills herself to believe that she may have misheard or that nothing was uttered at all. But Veronica's thrashing heart doesn't subside for another few blocks. Sometimes she wonders what it is like to be white and not have to deal with this shit every day of her life. When Veronica gets home, she lies on her bed, listening to the cars in the alley, the noise of the TV in the living room, and the raised voices of her mother and her mother's boyfriend Willie. They aren't necessarily fighting, they always talk real loud to each other. She rolls her eyes, turns on her side, and dwells on Ralphie because that's all she has to think about. She wonders where he could be, and why she hasn't heard from him. Veronica doesn't like being home, but appreciates that there are always a few minutes of refuge there, where she can let her mind wander. But inevitably, she is pulled toward fighting with her mother, Willie, or her little sister Gigi. Veronica can hear her sister bossing around some other girl in Thieleyway, and she wants to go out there and tell Gigi she's being out of pocket. But instead, Veronica puts a pillow over her eyes and hopes she falls asleep before she hears the girl start to cry. But Maria said she saw him last night at Tito's house. Do you want to see if he's on Chestnut now? Cassandra says, is that what she told you? She didn't even mention that to me. What the fuck is going on? Veronica says they walk through Jackson Parkway, and for the first time in weeks Veronica spots Ralphie on the playground across the street. Her disappointment that he is there and hasn't called is deflating. You think his hold be a bitch, or act nice? She asks Cassandra. Cassandra shrugs. Let's see what he has to say. She looks down at the cracked sidewalk and tries to let the happiness at seeing him overrun her. Ralphie, she calls from across the street. He acknowledges her with a nod and heads toward her. So what's up? I haven't seen you, Veronica says as she leans over to kiss him. Nothing, same old shit. Cops were sweating me, so I've been chilling at my mom's house in Springfield and I just got back last night. Nice to let me know. I've been looking for you. I beeped you like 10 times. Oh, my batteries died, and I didn't get new ones until this morning. Really? Yeah, I'm serious, he says as he encircles her waist with his arm and pushes her forward so she leans against his body. Next time I'll make Cerrito call you. Come on, don't be mad. I haven't seen you in a while, I don't want to fight. Defend me here, Cassandra. Tell her to chill. Veronica looks at Ralph's bronze face and sees that beautiful grin, that smile she really wants to believe exists only for her. It breaks the hardness off his face, and he seems like two boyfriends at once. Since she was 13, she's seen him at all the parties, And even then she wanted to be the girl he invited into hallways to rap to. He entwines his fingers with hers, bites his lip, and presses his forehead against hers, until Veronica has torn his wondrous smile. Despite his bullshit, Veronica is elated Cassandra is here to observe this moment, so that all those people who talks hit can see, he really does love her. She pulls back and kisses him on the lips and asks him what is up to now. He says that he's waiting for Tito, but he'll call her later so she can come over. When Veronica and Cassandra stride away, Veronica beams with energy. She turns back to admire Ralphie and loves the way he looks with his hands in his pocket, a hoodie over his curly hair. She feels the heat of her heart spread. These are the only times she can be connected to her feelings, when she is with Ralphie, because even Hollyoake girls are allowed to hope for love. Veronica squeals with delight as Ralphie tickles her and tackles her onto his bed. She kicks her legs underneath him. "Oh my God, let me tell you how at school I was voted most likely to get pregnant." He slaps her stomach and kisses it. "You want a baby from me? Shit, I can give you a baby. Only if you want one," she says coyly. "If I had a baby I could just leave my house and have my own shit. I wouldn't have to go to school anymore, and we could be together more." She strokes his head on her stomach. "But my mom keeps giving me speeches about not getting pregnant." Veronica's mother stopped asking her where she spends the night. It is safer to think Veronica is at Cassandra's house. It is easier for her to jump tot-hat conclusion, the one that has the safe ending. If she had to think any harder, then her imagination would unravel like red ribbons and she may have to think about her little girl fucking and how their lives have started to follow the same trajectory. Then there would be no more choices about what little Veronica is doing, no alternatives for mother or daughter to mull over. Just knowledge of what lies ahead. "She still thinks I'm a virgin," Veronica says and laughs. She had waited to lose her virginity until she was 15, even though no one believed her. They all thought there was no way. But this was one way she could be different from all the other Hollyoake girls. "Seriously, if she only knew how many times I pounded that pussy." "Ew, don't say it like that." Veronica slaps Ralphie's arm. Sex with Ralphie isn't like in the movies, where some guy comes over to the woman's house with flowers and is willing to do just about anything to please her. The woman is always wearing pretty matching underwear, she always seems to know what to do in bed, and they always orgasm at the same time. With Ralphie, clothes don't have to be off. They don't use protection. She doesn't think about the size of his dick or if he's making her feel good. She just thinks that sex isn't as great as she had heard it was. When he finishes, he rolls off her. And it is over just like that. She doesn't know there can be better, just that this isn't as good. And this is the whole world for her. Sometimes I wish I could reach down and put my mouth over hers, breathing into her a new life. Down in the flats, cars filled with the Polish-rammed Puerto Ricans against the red brick apartment buildings. The ZA Klebem immigrants, once landless, who came to Hollyoake to claim their own parcels and reap from the mills, once again felt the loss of green or concrete under their feet, and they decided to fight. But the smashing of the Puerto Ricans did not keep them out. They broke through. And now, the Polish don't even remain like they're-ish. No vestiges to mark that the Polish were actually once here. Every Thursday, Veronica heads to Cassandra's house. It's only the two of them because they both live in South Hollyoake, and Maria moved to Jarvis Heights, an apartment complex in another part of town, a few years ago. It's a nice spring night, and while Veronica waits for Cassandra to come down to the stoop, she checks her beeper to make sure she hasn't missed a beep from Ralphie. She hasn't. She tries to pinpoint when this shadiness first started and can't find a clear-cut difference between before and after because, if truth be told, Ralphie has always acted this way. Guys are supposed to hold girls at a distance. Veronica never believed he would act in an extraordinary way, but with all her suspicions, only now is it starting to get to her. "Oh my God, look at what my mother found," Cassandra exclaims as she skips down the stairs and plops down next to Veronica. "Oh shit," Veronica says when she opens the book. "The Boys and Girls of Hollyoake. Are you in this too? There is a picture of me somewhere in here." "Yup, look," There I am. Look at this shit. I said I wanted to be a nurse. Can you believe that shit? That's so funny. You want to be a nurse for real? Let me see what I told that man, Veronica says, turning the pages to find her picture. She stares at herself. What did you say? Oh, I said I didn't know. Veronica barely recognizes herself in the picture. Doesn't believe she was ever that young. That there was a time shedded T have this body or left the house without makeup. Staring down at her quote on the page, she now remembers that day, that man and his camera, his notepad, and all of his questions. She had wanted to tell him her career dreams, but some of her classmates were standing nearby and she didn't want to sound corny. So she told him she didn't know. The man kept asking if she was sure. Veronica knew she disappointed him and wasn't sure if she would make it into the book. She was exhilarated when she saw herself in the group photo on the cover, and she had a page to herself on the inside. When she read everyone else's answers to the man's questions, she gasped and punched the book. Even if she had whispered it in his ear, she wished she had told him. Cassandra pulls out a smoke and says, "Look, there's Jeanette. She just had a baby. Guess she won't be a doctor now." Do you think any of them meant it? Probably not. That is some shit you say when you're young. I bet most of them don't remember saying any of this, Cassandra responds. Veronica nods because, sitting on the stoop now with Cassandra by her side, the book on her lap, she feels her heart press against her. She instinctively pulls out a cigarette, hoping the smoke will reach all the way down and shroud her heart. Cassandra turns on the boombox she brought down with the book. It is Thursday and from 6 to 8 they listen to clubhouse dance music, softly singing the words to the songs of Judy Torres, TKA, Cynthia, Coro, and India. This is one of Veronica's most cherished pastimes. Every week without fail, Puerto Ricans all over Western Mass, in their cars or their kitchens, tune into STCC FM, and they all know the words by heart. Most of the songs are about heartbreak. Veronica's favorites are when the guy sings about how he made a mistake with a girl, how he fucked up and now wants her back. That could actually happen. Veronica has always imagined herself sitting with Cassandra doing thighs on Thursday nights, but now, flipping through the book, she wonders what the years will bring. For once, she thinks the future isn't written. This fills her with sadness, and just a small pocket of hope. The girls hawk the cars going by. When they peep guys they know, and walk over to the double-parked cars, Veronica is left knowing that if she were to ever leave Ralphie, one of these double-parked guys would love to step. The last to arrive, to work in the tobacco fields, were the Puerto Ricans. They came in the 50s. Not the 50s memorialized on TV. These people came to work. Not in offices. No clean, crisp, white shirts at the end of the day. No nice homes to return to by 6 o'clock. No doting wives. They came to work with their hands. Maybe just like they did in Puerto Rico. Tobacco instead of sugar cane. By the time they came, though, everything was almost gone. All the promise. All the upward spirals. All the paper like gold. Last weekend, Veronica and Cassandra had a girls' night instead of going to a party like they normally do. But Maria didn't want to be involved. She went out without them. Veronica and Cassandra were excited to do something different. Just like when they were little girls, they wore pink and blue plush pajamas with clouds and small yellow thunderbolts, watched The Little Mermaid, and undid each other's hair. Bangs hair sprayed into ski slopes were finger-combed out. Bund hair was unfurled and let loose, their faces stripped down. Cheeks glistening from the removal of makeup. Most of the night they laughed with their mouths full of popcorn, wide and with abandon. They had planned to do the same this weekend, but by the end of Monday afternoon, Veronica heard that Gail was grinding on Ralphie at a party and she will not be punked any longer. She turns to the right and the left in the mirror. Wearing her baggy jeans, black boots, and black halter top, she wonders if she looks pretty enough tonight because, like most girls, she thinks beauty is the best way to keep a man. And she's right. In Hollyoak and at her age, that's all there is. Gail with her small tits and flat ass can't be competition, Plus Ralphie always said he would never date a white girl. But Gail is different. She's not a regular white girl. She's gone out with Puerto Ricans, and a long time ago, in elementary school, she was friends with Maria. A month ago, Veronica never even paid attention to Gail, but now Veronica watches to see what Gail's wearing or if she's shonging around Puerto Ricans, because if she is, that changes her status, makes her more competition. The thing about Hollyoak girls is that they don't realize how important other girls are to them. Their hearts pound for each other when they walk into parties. The way the night unfolds has nothing to do with rapping to a new guy, but if they fight with another girl. That is more life-altering than what boy they end up with. Will the girl's friends jump in? Who won't talk to her Monday morning? One mechanism changes and they have to wait to see how all the other parts will react. Mutation. Between the crowded bodies at the party, Veronica sees Maria with her arms wrapped around Ralphie's neck. Across the room, she can clearly see Ralphie's trademark smile beaming at Maria. Veronica turns to Cassandra and says, "What is this shit?" "Easy. You don't know anything for sure yet," Cassandra says. Veronica marches over to Ralphie, purposely bumps into Maria, and pulls him outside. "You've been mad shady lately. If you're cheating on me, then just let me know because I don't want to put up with this shit. I've been hearing a lot of noise about you messing around with Gail. Is that true?" "Veronica, baby, please. You keep saying things like that. Maybe it's Sayu, huh? You got another man? Don't turn this on me. Why were you dancing with Maria like that? Are you fucking her?" He laughs. "Veronica, why would I mess with your girl? She's not even cute. We were just dancing," he says, flashing his smile at her. "You're a fucking liar," Veronica says as she slams her fists into his chest. I wonder if she ever sat down and thought for just 1 second that perhaps love doesn't exist. Because who has she ever known that has ever been in love? Not her parents, not her neighbors, and most certainly not her friends. How is it that you can begin to believe in something when you have never seen proof of it? And weren't these notions of love based on movies and books that in all other respects did not reflect her life? But girls will be girls. Girls think they'll be better than their mothers, burst out dramatically, have an effect on a man's life. In Hollyoak, girls wanting to be in love is as inevitable as fighting in the streets. Veronica hauls back into the party. "Are you fucking my man?" she huffs in Maria's face. Veronica doesn't bother to wait for Maria to part her maroon-colored lips. Her heart knows the answer. Veronica does what she must and smacks Maria's head back into the wall. Before Maria can remember who she is, Veronica grabs her by the hair and smashes her head against her knee. The party people roar and cheer Veronica on. She knocks Maria to the ground and stops only when Ralphie pulls her off. When he envelops her, Veronica's shit bursts, and she does the unthinkable. Veronica starts to cry.